Hi, it's Edward, back with another video. Please take a moment to click the thumbs up button below and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your support. Today, I read an article on Yahoo Finance written by Paige Smith titled, "Discover Profit Tumbles 33% as Credit Card Write-Offs Mount." This article was put out by Bloomberg. I'll include a link to the article in the description below. I encourage you to read the full article to support the author and news source. As a private American citizen, I'd like to report and share my transformative thoughts through commentary regarding small sections of this article that are of public interest. According to the article, Discover Financial Services said third quarter profit dropped 33% as write-offs climbed and the firm set aside more money to cover future loan losses. The shares fell the most in more than 2 months. The article goes on to indicate the overall consumer spending outlook is positive, though there are significant differences between how prime and subprime consumers are weathering inflation and how interest rate increases are affecting how they manage debt. I am not surprised that the U.S. consumer spending outlook is positive. As long as U.S. consumers have access to credit, they will likely continue to spend. This higher interest rate reality has simply not sunk in yet for many everyday Americans, but it could catch up with some of them. This article goes on to indicate they're experiencing more day-to-day cash flow pressures than they did over the last few years. It almost seems like it's starting to finally unravel. I've been talking about how everyday Americans are struggling financially for months now. Wages have not kept pace with inflation, especially if we are talking about rent prices and housing prices. In some metropolitan areas, rent has doubled in the past few years. There are some individuals who can no longer afford to live on their own. Some may have had to take on roommates or even move back in with their parents. Renters who have found themselves priced out of the market are not in a position to be able to purchase a home in many cases because home prices are still very high. And now we are in a higher mortgage rate environment. The 30-year fixed rate insured conventional mortgage hit 8.5% this week for an ideal borrower. For someone who has less than ideal credit, he or she could potentially be paying close to 9% for a 30-year fixed rate insured conventional mortgage. I feel bad for everyday American families with a lot of children because daycare costs are incredibly expensive right now. For some families, they can't afford to have one of the parents stay home and care for those children. In some cases, families require 2 sources of income just to survive. When individuals go to the grocery store and load up their cart and make their way to the checkout aisle, they often get sticker shock once they find out how much all of that food is going to cost. Many people have had to make dietary changes because they can no longer afford to eat meat or eggs. The prices have simply gotten too high. Some everyday Americans are relying on buy now, pay later services just to pay for their groceries. I've talked about this in some recent videos. The average new vehicle price here in the United States of America is approximately $48,000, and used vehicle prices aren't much better. Now that we are living in a higher interest rate environment, the cost of financing these vehicles has gotten out of reach for many people. Unless you live in a city with good public transportation or you work from home, you typically need a car. What's really disturbing to me is that many of these greedy car dealerships are now tacking on dealer-installed options for all of the vehicles on their lot. They are trying their best to squeeze as much profit out of each unit that they sell. I talked with an individual that I know who worked in the car industry for many years, and he still has contacts with a lot of the different dealerships. He told me one of the ways that you can avoid having to deal with these expensive dealer added options is to order a vehicle. The only problem with that is you often need to wait several months before the vehicle arrives. This doesn't help someone who had a vehicle that broke down that isn't worth repairing. Some people simply need a vehicle now and they can't wait. Some everyday people need to simply buy a vehicle that's on the lot. They end up paying more than they should, and some people can only afford the payment if they stretch out the loan to 84 months or 96 months. I can't believe that there are lenders that are now offering 96-month vehicle loans. I personally would never finance a vehicle for 84 months or 96 months. You are simply throwing away far too much money in interest. I am not a fan of purchasing a new vehicle anyway. I think most people are better served by purchasing a good quality used vehicle with cash. Note that I said a good quality vehicle. There are a lot of vehicles that I would never consider purchasing, even if they had incredibly low mileage and they were well maintained. There are some manufacturers out there who produce some junk vehicles. I am not surprised one bit that Discover Financial Services is dealing with write-offs right now. Many Americans aren't even living paycheck to paycheck. Many rely on credit cards to bridge the gap between what they bring in with their paycheck and what their expenses are each month. There are a lot of people who do not have the ability to pay off their credit card balance at the end of the billing cycle. They have to roll that debt over month after month after month. Because the Federal Reserve has hiked their Fed funds rate 11 times, the amount of interest being charged by these credit card companies is very high. Credit card debt can quickly snowball out of control for many everyday people. To make matters worse, student loan payments just resumed this month. There are a lot of everyday Americans who are in a position where they are unable to cover their monthly expenses without the help of a credit card. And now some of these individuals have to figure out how to resume making their student loan payments. We are not talking about a small group of individuals who have student loans here in this country. There are approximately 44 million individuals who have student loans. The average student loan payment is somewhere in the vicinity of $400 to $500 per month, depending on the source that you reference. Fortunately, there are approximately 1 million individuals who will not need to resume making their student loan payments because they qualify under Biden's SAVE plan based on their income level and family size. That leaves approximately 43 million other individuals who will have to make some type of student loan payment. Some of these individuals may see their payment amount reduced under Biden's SAVE plan based on their income level and family size, but they will still have to make some type of payment. There will be others who will not benefit from the SAVE plan because of a higher income level and because of their family size. There may now be a lot of everyday Americans in a situation where they don't know how they are going to cover their student loan payment amount and cover all of the other expenses in life each month. Many may rely more heavily on credit cards just to get by. This is a scary thought given the high level of interest that credit card companies are now charging. There are a lot of credit card companies that are charging a level of interest from the mid-20s up to 30% or more. Keep in mind, we are all about to enter the holiday season soon. Many everyday people will have to rely on credit cards in order to cover the cost of their holiday gatherings with family members. Some may have to use credit cards in order to purchase gifts for their children and or extended family members. Consumerism is pushed so hard in this country. Everyone receives constant subliminal messaging through commercials on television or ads online. Many individuals feel as though they need to spend money to be able to have a certain type of holiday experience, and they will do so at all costs, even if that means going further into credit card debt, even though these credit card companies are charging extremely high levels of interest right now. Here's something I want everyone to think about. During the past few years, when interest rates were lower, a lot of individuals did cash out refinances. They did this to raise cash to pay off their credit card debt. This is now going to be extremely difficult to do for some individuals now that we are in a higher interest rate environment. Now that money is not cheap and easy anymore, what are some of these individuals that have a lot of credit card debt going to do? Are we going to have more and more people doing rideshare driving in the evenings after work or delivering food for some app? Are we going to have multiple generations of families living under one roof just to survive financially? In my opinion, credit cards aren't the answer. This data from Discover Financial Services illustrates my point. Some Americans have reached the tipping point with credit card debt already. I wonder if the worst is yet to come. In this higher for longer interest rate environment, it's going to be even harder for some people to keep up with the Joneses using credit cards. Some will try and end up having to file for bankruptcy. We saw this all play out during the 2008 Great Financial Crisis. Regarding the article that I referenced today, I decided to look at some of the comments beneath that article, and I thought some of these were really good, so I want to share them with you. Here's one. That's a pretty big deal. How many other companies are dealing with delinquencies, I wonder? At 25% interest, we make sure our balance is paid, but there are a lot of consumers that let balances ride, which can only lead to trouble with those sort of rates. Here's another good one. This is just the beginning. The American people have been living off credit cards for a while now, in my opinion. We will see more defaults than ever before. Another commenter writes, tough when the government stops giving you money. What do you think of the comments left beneath this article? I found them to be pretty interesting. I personally am scared for these individuals who rely heavily on credit cards. It's possible some credit card companies may reduce risk by lowering credit card limits. It's possible some credit card companies may decide to close credit accounts completely for some individuals. Keep in mind, credit card companies are not your friend, regardless of how happy their commercials may seem on television. They are in the business to make money, and they make a lot of money. Look at the interest that they are charging. Understand, I'm not trying to discourage people from using credit cards. I use credit cards every day. I take advantage of the cash back, but I always pay off my balance at the end of the billing cycle completely. For individuals who lack discipline to do that, they should consider transitioning to using cash only. Some people may want to consider using the envelope method. My grandmother used the envelope method for the majority of her adult life. She would take the money that she received from her paycheck, she would split it up into different envelopes. She would have one envelope for fuel for the car, she'd have another envelope for groceries, another envelope for utilities, another envelope for fun money. She could only spend the money that was in each envelope. She had to constrain her spending. This really allowed her to live within her means. It is such a simple method, and a lot of people could benefit from doing this. The only potential risk is that you could lose one of these envelopes, or you could get robbed and lose all of your money. Unfortunately, there are a lot of individuals who get into credit card debt and aren't able to get out. My uncle was one of those people. He worked incredibly hard. He never missed a day of work ever since getting out of the Vietnam War and starting his first job. He worked so hard that he was tired when he got off work, and he didn't want to go to the grocery store, purchase food, and then take it home and cook it. It was simply easier for him to go out to dinner or go through the drive-thru. He wasted a ton of money on food throughout his life doing this. He also blew a lot of money doing expensive experiences with his family. In the end, this all caught up with him. He had to file bankruptcy. I think American families need to find ways to live beneath their means or find ways to bring in more income to avoid using credit cards and carrying debt over from month to month to month. This simply can get out of hand very quickly. The debt hamster wheel is not good for anyone, especially given the high levels of interest today. What do you think about all this? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Please keep in mind, nothing in this video is financial advice. If you need advice of any kind, seek advice from a qualified professional in good standing who puts your interests first and foremost. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so. I want to extend a special thanks to everyone who has subscribed to this channel. I also want to thank all of my channel members. Stay healthy and wealthy. I'll see everyone in the next video.